Hello and welcome to Just Around Earth, a space where curiosity unfolds gently and science meanders from one thought to another. Tonight, we'll explore a question that transcends textbooks and the inscriptions of ancient stones. It's a question that lingers quietly beneath each fossil, every grain of sand, and all the forgotten ruins around us. What if the first civilization on Earth extinguished itself long before ours ever began? Not the empires we recognize, nor the historical kingdoms or the stone monuments showcased in museums, but something far older, something that predates myth, memory, and perhaps even the very essence of humanity as we understand it. A civilization so deeply buried in time that any traces of it, if they ever existed, have been worn down by the planet itself. Before we delve deeper into this intriguing thought, I'd like to pause and ask you something simple. In this quiet moment we share, where are you listening from tonight? Are you nestled in your room, unwinding after a long day? Or perhaps you're leaning back in your chair, the lights dimmed, as the world slows down to a more manageable pace? And what time is it in your corner of the world? It's fascinating to consider how each of us arrives here at different moments, isn't it? You are listening to the same words, yet your experience is shaped by hours, routines, and the rhythm of your own day. Despite this separation, it feels as if we are gathered in a shared space, one that welcomes curiosity to unfold at its own pace. If this gentle exploration brings you comfort, or if you enjoy wandering through these slow, steady scientific tales, I would be grateful for your support. A simple like or subscription can help this calming corner reach others who may need it. Now that we are settled, let's gently dive into the idea that in the distant past, a civilization might have risen, thrived, and ultimately vanished long before the first recognizable chapters of human history were written. When you think of ancient civilizations, familiar images from school lessons or documentaries often come to mind. Pyramids beneath bright desert skies, intricately carved stone temples, terrace fields, and ships crafted from timber. You may envision the early cities of Mesopotamia, the lush river valleys of the Nile, or the weathered ruins of Greece and Rome. These remarkable achievements are indeed foundational to our story as a species. However, it's important to note that all of these cultures existed within a relatively brief period in the grand tapestry of time. Consider the vastness of time, where the Earth has existed for over 4 billion years. In contrast, our documented civilization spans only a few thousand years. It's akin to reading a book with most of its pages blank, leaving only a brief conclusion. The silence of those early chapters provokes curiosity. We don't aim to replace scientific understanding with mere speculation, but the immense timeline of our planet invites thoughts that linger just beyond our current knowledge. As we delve into human prehistory, we depend on delicate remnants, charred seeds, primitive tools, cave art, and scattered bones. The deeper our exploration goes, the scarcer these traces become, revealing how easily evidence can vanish. If a civilization thrived long before our recorded history, the Earth would have had countless years to erase nearly every indication of its existence. This notion opens up a vast realm of possibilities. Imagine for a moment a group of early humans, or their ancestors, forming a society far more sophisticated than we typically envision for that era. Picture a community with organization, structure, and systems, tools, and practices developed over generations. The potential for such advanced societies invites us to ponder the mysteries of our past. What might they have achieved? What stories remain untold? Imagine a civilization that doesn't rely on futuristic machines or advanced electronics. Such a society can be intricate, defined by cooperation and the sharing of knowledge among its communities. It might consist of a network of settlements that thrive together, expanding across regions without leaving behind skyscrapers or metal structures. Instead, it could be marked by stories and traditions that gradually blend into the landscape, long before the civilizations we recognize today began to emerge. Yet, a profound question lingers. Did this early civilization meet its end due to its own actions? Could it have unwittingly paved the way for its downfall through choices, pressures, or conflicts that spiraled beyond its control? Human behavior, across all ages, is shaped by instincts, needs, and the external pressures faced by groups. As early humans learned to harness resources, form larger communities, and devise survival strategies, they likely encountered challenges similar to those we face today. Issues like scarcity, conflict, environmental stress, and the struggle to balance growth with stability may have been just as relevant then as they are now. Reflect on this. What might those ancient choices reveal about the paths we tread today? As you explore this concept, it's important to recognize that civilizations don't necessarily need advanced metalwork or grand structures to be at risk of collapse. Their fragility can stem from the relationships between their people and the land they depend on. If a society expands too rapidly, strains its resources, or faces internal conflicts, it may encounter issues that gradually erode its foundation. Over time, these pressures could lead to a collapse significant enough to scatter the people who once formed that community, leaving behind little for us to discover. The Earth is remarkably efficient at recycling its surface. Forces like wind, water, ice, tectonics, and the passage of time work together to erase evidence of past civilizations. Wood decays, clay erodes, bone fragments crumble, and even stone can be weathered into grains. In just a few thousand years, an abandoned settlement can blend seamlessly into the landscape. Over millions of years, entire continents shift, coastlines transform, and mountains rise or fall. After tens of millions of years, the geological record becomes a tapestry of pressure, heat, and layered minerals, where anything small or delicate simply vanishes. Take a moment to reflect on this cycle of creation and dissolution. What stories might the land still hold? Imagine a civilization that thrived tens or even hundreds of thousands of years before what we consider early human societies. The remnants we might uncover today could be entirely unrecognizable to us. This exploration doesn't hinge on the belief that such a civilization possessed advanced technology or machines. Instead, it invites us to reflect on how little we truly grasp about humanity's earliest chapters on Earth. There are significant gaps in our timeline, areas where our evidence is incomplete. These gaps don't necessarily indicate a lack of history, rather they highlight the limits of our understanding. Silence in the archaeological record may stem from absence, but it can also arise from erosion, destruction, or evidence that simply fades away with time. As researchers delve into early human development, they often stress the challenges of drawing definitive conclusions from scant remains. A solitary bone or a fragment of a tool can dramatically alter our timelines. The discovery of a new cave site can challenge existing notions about migration, population sizes, or behaviors. If such evidence can reshape our understanding of events from tens of thousands of years ago, consider how little we might know about occurrences from hundreds of thousands or even millions of years prior. So, what do you think? How might this ancient silence speak to us today? This uncertainty isn't a flaw in science. It's simply part of studying a planet that is always changing. When we think about a civilization that existed so long ago, it prompts us to imagine what kinds of structures they might have created. Perhaps they used organic materials, building shelters from wood, woven fibers, or animal hides. These materials would quickly disappear when faced with the elements. Even if they relied on simple baked clay or stone tools, these could erode or dissolve over vast periods, especially if buried under layers of sediment or damaged by natural forces. In this context, the earth acts as a relentless eraser, gradually smoothing away the past. All that might remain is a vague memory of early humans living long before agriculture or writing came into play. If a civilization did indeed rise and then fall during that distant time, we are left to ponder how it might have met its demise. This isn't meant to sound dramatic or apocalyptic. Rather, it's a thoughtful exploration of what we understand about societies that collapse. Collapse is rarely a sudden event. More often, it unfolds gradually. Pressures build up over time, internal conflicts emerge, cooperation diminishes, resources become limited. Reflect on this as we consider the lessons of the past and what they might teach us about our present. Civilizations experience shifts over time. Trade networks diminish, and leadership structures become unstable. As a result, people often break away into smaller groups. Gradually, the unity that once characterized a civilization fades, sometimes leaving behind little trace. This pattern can be observed in societies of all sizes. When you consider an early civilization through this perspective, it's not about envisioning advanced technology. Instead, it's about recognizing universal patterns that emerge in all complex societies. Humans, regardless of their time period, respond to their surroundings, to one another, and to the challenges they encounter. If early humans formed a large society, they likely faced challenges similar to those of later civilizations, even if their tools and systems differed significantly. The delicate nature of cooperation, the complexities of resource management, and the tensions that arise from growth may have contributed to a gradual decline. If you delve deeper into this idea, you might envision that after such a civilization crumbled, the remaining scattered groups slowly lost the shared knowledge that once united them. People reverted to simpler ways of living, not due to a lack of intelligence, but because sustaining complexity demands stability and effective communication. Across generations, skills may fade, and traditions can be set aside. Practices that once defined a society might vanish if they no longer serve the needs of those who remain. Over time, the memory of a civilization can completely disappear, replaced by new ways of life that seem disconnected from the past. This prompts a deeper reflection. If a civilization from long ago met its end, whether intentionally or by chance, the Earth would have had ample time to reclaim what was left behind. This raises an intriguing question. How do we recognize the remnants of something so ancient when most materials we seek today are destined to decay? When we first delve into the earliest chapters of human history, the narrative often begins with familiar artifacts etched into timelines. We think of tools fashioned from stone, remnants of fires, simple shelters, and scattered bones. We envision small groups living in harmony with the land, adapting to the changing seasons, evolving gradually over millennia. This image feels distant yet familiar, as if we are tracing the initial steps that lead to the civilization we know today. Take a moment to consider this journey through time. Where do you see connections to your own experiences? As you delve into the intricate layers of Earth's history, that clear progression begins to blur. There are swathes of time so expansive and devoid of clear evidence that it's hard to believe we possess the entire narrative. This silence can feel like a missing chapter, unnoticed until now. Imagine standing in a desert, your gaze stretching across the horizon. The ground beneath you has transformed countless times. Entire ecosystems have risen and faded away. River paths have altered, forests have flourished and disappeared, only to flourish again. Continents have drifted, and mountain ranges have been born and eroded. What seems permanent in the moment is in the grand timeline of our planet merely temporary. This ever-shifting foundation makes it incredibly daunting to uncover anything older than a few tens of thousands of years. The further back you venture, the more the past resembles a collection of fragmented pieces rather than a cohesive story. When archaeologists unearth the remnants of a city that existed 5,000 years ago, they are already dealing with something delicate. Walls crumble, artifacts shatter, and inscriptions fade. Yet, at least these remnants belong to a time that hasn't been entirely reshaped by the relentless forces of geology. Take a moment to reflect on this vastness. What stories might still be waiting to be discovered? Imagine the remnants of a world that existed not just thousands, but hundreds of thousands of years ago. The very ground beneath us has likely folded, compacted, or fused under immense pressure. What was once a surface trodden by ancient feet may now lie buried beneath layers of sediment, compressed rock, or volcanic debris. The likelihood of discovering direct evidence from such distant times is incredibly slim. Even if fragments do survive, they might be unrecognizable without the right context. This leads us to a crucial insight. When we envision ancient civilizations, we often picture grand stone monuments or enduring structures. Yet, not all societies chose stone as their medium. Throughout history, many groups built their homes from materials like wood, clay, or woven plant fibers, substances that degrade swiftly over time. Even today, entire cultures exist whose architectural legacies leave little trace after just a few centuries. Consider this: if a society from the distant past relied on such ephemeral materials, their marks on history would vanish almost instantly. Natural elements like wind, rain, temperature changes, and microorganisms would break them down, erasing even the faintest signs of their existence. As you reflect on the fragility of this evidence, the idea of an entire civilization disappearing feels less like a tale of fiction and more like a reality shaped by the vastness of time and scale. Imagine a time when the Sahara was not just a vast desert, but a land of rivers and grasslands. Beneath its sands lie remnants of early human activity, hinting that other parts of the world may hold similar secrets. Deserts now cloak what were once lakes and forests, while forests have reclaimed land that was once open ground. Ice sheets shift and reshape the landscape, constantly altering the earth. With each transformation, pieces of our history are buried or lost. Among the most fascinating insights into early human behavior come from small artifacts that have managed to survive. A stone shaped by human hands, a charred patch of soil that once cradled a fire, or a fragment of pigment used for marking surfaces. These discoveries are significant, yet they also remind us of how much has vanished. For every artifact uncovered, countless others have disappeared. For each preserved site, thousands have faded into nothingness. It's easy to overlook that what exists today is just a fraction of what the Earth has allowed us to retain. Picture early human groups inhabiting areas now hidden beneath deserts, oceans, or thick jungles. If they settled near coastlines, many of those locations are now submerged, lost to the ever-changing tides of time. Imagine a time when ice ages sculpted the earth, lowering sea levels and revealing vast expanses of land now submerged beneath the ocean's surface. This ancient terrain might have hosted settlements or structures, yet today they remain hidden, accessible only through extensive underwater exploration. Consider the possibility that even simple coastal communities, if they existed, could have left behind tools or materials now buried under layers of sediment or worn away by the relentless movement of water. Researchers have pondered whether peculiar markings on ancient surfaces, unusual patterns in geological layers, or unexpected clusters of stones might suggest human activity far earlier than we currently believe. While many of these findings can be attributed to natural phenomena, like rock fractures from freezing water, animal markings, or shifts caused by roots and soil movement, there are occasional discoveries that spark deeper curiosity. These findings may not provide definitive proof, but they invite us to reconsider our understanding. This uncertainty doesn't confirm the existence of an early civilization, yet it highlights how easily the faintest traces of the past can be misinterpreted or overlooked. When you reflect on the lives of early humans, it's essential to think about their movements. If groups migrated across vast landscapes in pursuit of food or in sync with seasonal changes, they likely didn't linger in one place for long. This dynamic existence shapes our understanding of their world and the remnants they may have left behind. Temporary camps often leave behind fewer traces than permanent settlements. Footprints can disappear in just days. Fire pits wash away, and storms erase the signs of habitation. Tools, moved from place to place, may break and blend into the landscape, discarded without a trace. If these groups interacted or traded, their connections might not have left any physical evidence. Ideas can spread without a single artifact remaining. The notion of a forgotten civilization doesn't require imagining something highly advanced. It simply suggests the possibility that early humans or their close relatives were more organized than we generally believe. Throughout much of human evolution, various species of early humans coexisted. Some had larger brains, others crafted more sophisticated tools, and some formed intricate social groups. If one of these groups developed stable communities, shared labor, or even basic resource management systems, they could create something that meets the definition of a civilization. Yet, they could lose it just as easily. Think about how knowledge was shared. Long before the advent of writing, everything relied on memory, teaching, and oral traditions. If a population dwindled or dispersed, knowledge could vanish within just a few generations. Imagine a world where environmental changes force communities to adapt swiftly, leading to the loss of specialized skills. As you reflect on the vast expanse of human history, it's easy to assume that progress is a given. Yet progress hinges on stability, communication, and a shared sense of purpose. Without these crucial elements, societies may revert to simpler forms, not due to a lack of ability, but as a response to their circumstances. There's another layer to this story. The materials utilized by early societies often differ from the tools we might expect. Even in more recent times, various groups across the globe have developed technologies uniquely suited to their environments. Tools crafted from bone, antler, shell, or plant fibers were once common. However, these materials tend to degrade swiftly, leaving behind only faint impressions or small fragments. If a civilization relied heavily on natural resources, its entire technological legacy could vanish from the archaeological record. Environmental changes also play a pivotal role in erasing the past. Floods can wash away entire communities, while earthquakes may bury regions beneath layers of debris. Volcanic eruptions can blanket vast areas in ash and lava, preserving some artifacts but obliterating others entirely. Consider the fragility of our history and the delicate balance that sustains progress. As you ponder this, remember that every story has its nuances, and the echoes of the past can often be faint but profound. Would you like to explore this further, or perhaps take a moment to reflect? Over countless millennia, significant events accumulate, leading to the gradual erosion of history. A site may face destruction multiple times, with later changes obscuring the original structures until they become unrecognizable. The further back in time you look, the more likely this cycle has repeated itself. Even something as unassuming as plant growth can erase vital evidence. Roots infiltrate stone cracks, causing them to fracture. Vegetation blankets abandoned areas, concealing remnants beneath layers of soil. Animals disturb the ground, digging and burrowing, while insects consume organic materials. Microbial activity breaks down wood, bone, and fibers, further complicating our understanding of the past. When you consider all these processes, it becomes evident why reconstructing the earliest signs of human activity is so challenging. Imagine walking through a modern city and envisioning its state after 200,000 years without human intervention. The outcome is almost universally the same. It would no longer resemble a city. Buildings would crumble, streets would be overtaken by greenery, and metal structures would rust away. Concrete would disintegrate under the elements. Insects, water, and temperature fluctuations would continue to erode whatever remnants remained. Ultimately, only faint geological traces might survive, and even those could be buried beyond recognition. As you reflect on this, consider how fragile our connection to the past truly is. Imagine a world where the whispers of ancient societies are nearly lost to time. This notion deepens when we consider modern materials and their fleeting nature. The silence surrounding early eras invites us to reflect on how we interpret the absence of evidence. Remember, the lack of traces from deep history does not equate to proof that nothing existed. It's simply a reminder of our planet's ever-changing landscape. Across the globe, there are once thriving ecosystems and communities that now reveal little about their existence. As we journey further back in time, this phenomenon becomes even more striking. Researchers highlight that even robust structures from past civilizations might slip from our recognition. A rectangular foundation could easily be mistaken for a natural rock formation. A carefully arranged set of stones might appear as mere geological layers. Without the right context, distinguishing human creation from natural processes becomes a challenge. As we delve deeper into history, we see how nature reshapes everything into its own unique patterns. When scientists search for traces of early humans, they often concentrate on specific areas where remains are likely to be preserved. This exploration invites you to ponder the mysteries hidden beneath the surface. Would you like to continue this journey of discovery, or perhaps take a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered? Imagine the serene shores of a lake, the mysterious depths of caves, and the layers of volcanic ash that cradle the past. These unique environments offer the perfect conditions for long-term preservation of history. However, they cover only a small portion of our planet's surface. Most landscapes do not provide the right setting to keep fragile remnants of ancient civilizations intact. If a society thrived beyond these ideal areas, much of its legacy may have vanished without a trace. This observation is not to suggest that we are overlooking significant evidence or that there are hidden monuments waiting to be found. Instead, it emphasizes the difficulty of seeking out remnants of cultures that may have existed in forms less likely to endure. Our understanding of early civilizations is often influenced by preconceived notions, yet these expectations can limit the questions we pose. What if these early societies constructed their environments differently, organized themselves in unique ways, or adapted to their surroundings in unexpected manners? Their remains might not align with the patterns we have been taught to recognize. Across the field of archaeology, we find instances where new discoveries have reshaped our views on early human abilities. Stone tools have emerged from surprising locations. Evidence shows that controlled fire was used earlier than we once believed, and traces of symbolic behavior have surfaced long before the advent of written language. As you contemplate these reflections, consider what other mysteries might be waiting to be uncovered. Allow your curiosity to guide you, and perhaps you will discover more about the rich tapestry of our shared human history. Every new discovery adds depth to our understanding of human behavior, suggesting that our complex abilities may have emerged earlier than we once thought. These findings do not indicate the existence of a lost civilization. Rather, they highlight the evolution of knowledge and the importance of staying open to new ideas. As we delve deeper into this topic, the essential question shifts. It's not about whether an early civilization existed, but whether the conditions on our planet could have allowed one to rise, flourish, and vanish so completely that only faint traces remain, scattered across landscapes reshaped over time. When envisioning the earliest signs of order among humans, many picture a simple scene: a group gathered around a fire, crafting tools for hunting or gathering, with a few shelters nearby. These moments seem like the initial steps toward organization, yet they prompt us to consider what order truly means in the context of primitive societies. At what point does a collection of individuals transform into something more structured? When does a routine evolve into a community? And when does that community begin to develop patterns that over time might resemble a civilization? These inquiries are vital as we investigate the possibility of societies forming long before the ones we typically discuss. Order doesn't emerge all at once. It unfolds gradually, shaped by small choices that accumulate over generations. When you examine early human groups through the lens of archaeology, you uncover recurring patterns in their behavior. They often gathered near water sources, returned to specific locations seasonally, and shared responsibilities that enhanced their chances of survival. These fundamental tendencies can also be observed in animal groups. However, in humans, these patterns evolve into something more intricate. Cooperation becomes more adaptable, planning takes on greater intentionality, and tools become increasingly specialized. When these developments converge, they establish a foundation for societal structure long before any written records come into play. Some of the earliest indicators of this transformation can be found in areas where groups consistently returned to the same site over many generations, even without the construction of permanent structures. This repeated use of a location implies that the site held shared significance or provided dependable resources. As time passes, the familiarity with a place fosters more coordinated activities. People begin to learn the terrain, recognize seasonal patterns, and develop expectations about what they will encounter upon their return. Isn't it fascinating to think about how these early choices laid the groundwork for the complex societies we know today? Perhaps you might reflect on the places that hold meaning for you. When a location becomes vital for a group's survival, it often leads to the establishment of shared rules or customs regarding its use. These initial forms of order may appear modest, yet they lay the groundwork for something much greater: A simple choice to remain near a dependable water source can encourage families to stay close together. This closeness fosters more consistent cooperation among them. As groups linger in one area longer than usual, they may begin to construct more permanent shelters. Even if these shelters are made from delicate materials, they offer a sense of stability. This stability nurtures long-term planning, which in turn promotes systems that resemble the early beginnings of organized society. The shift from nomadic hunting to more settled communities did not occur uniformly across the globe. In certain regions, environmental challenges kept groups on the move for tens of thousands of years. Conversely, other areas provided the conditions necessary for longer-term settlement. However, even among those who continued to travel, there are indications that order did not rely solely on being sedentary. Some mobile societies developed complex traditions, structured groups, and knowledge systems that endured across generations. As you reflect on this journey of human development, consider the intricate ways in which our ancestors adapted to their environments. What lessons might we draw from their experiences? Imagine a world where early humans gather in harmony, their lives woven together by the rhythms of the seasons. During these times, they hunt, share meals, and impart vital skills to their children, ensuring their survival. Within these gatherings, patterns naturally emerge. The wisdom of the elders flows to the youth, creating a rich tapestry of knowledge. Some individuals shine in tracking animals, while others possess the knack for crafting tools. There are those who excel in preparing food, and some who take on the role of mediators, guiding decisions and resolving conflicts. These roles, though lacking formal titles, hold great significance as they shape the very identity of the group. As generations pass, this knowledge becomes more structured. Stories arise, teaching the best methods for various tasks. Techniques for crafting tools are refined until they become the standard. When a method for preserving food proves successful, it is cherished and improved upon. These small acts of organization accumulate, forming a framework that may not be documented, but is nonetheless deeply embedded in their culture. When such a group meets another, the exchange of knowledge, materials, and ideas sparks a vibrant connection. The sharing of their experiences enriches both communities, illustrating the profound impact of their internal order. Would you like to explore more about these fascinating interactions? This exchange reveals yet another layer in the evolution of order. One of the most significant factors in establishing early communities was the mastery of fire. Fire provided warmth, allowed for cooking, offered protection from predators, and enabled larger gatherings without the need to disperse each night. Maintaining a fire requires cooperation. Someone must tend to it, ensure it is fed, and prevent it from spreading uncontrollably. This shared responsibility fosters collective expectations, which in turn lead to the formation of simple rules. As these rules gain acceptance, they begin to shape other aspects of group dynamics. Even the seemingly minor decision of where to place a fire within a gathering site can signify the onset of planning. As groups grow larger, they may encounter new challenges. Conflicts over resources, disputes regarding roles, or tensions between families could urge the group to find ways to manage these stresses. Solutions might arise from traditions, respect for elders, or established routines. With each resolution, the group becomes increasingly organized. Over time, these evolving systems distinguish a collection of individuals living side by side from a cohesive community with shared order. Archaeological evidence of these early forms of order can be found in the distribution of tools at ancient sites. Take a moment to reflect on this journey of development. How do you see the threads of cooperation and shared responsibility, weaving into the fabric of community today. In certain regions, stone tools are discovered, arranged in ways that hint at specific activity zones. One area may have served for cutting plants, while another was used for shaping stone, and yet another for food preparation. These patterns suggest that people had an understanding of where particular tasks should occur. This awareness doesn't emerge by chance, it develops through repetition and teaching. Over time, these practices become habits, forming the foundation of early organization. Moreover, ancient burial practices provide insights into social structures. In various archaeological sites, some individuals were interred with simple objects that held personal significance, while others were placed in graves that indicate a sense of care and intention. When a community takes the time to bury its deceased, it reflects a shared belief or value system. Even the simplest belief systems require communication and consensus. This agreement signifies order, as it shows that multiple individuals are collectively adhering to a set of expectations. Another crucial element in the early establishment of order is the sharing of food. Evidence from ancient sites suggests that food was often not consumed in isolation, but rather shared among the group. This act of sharing necessitates trust, which fosters cooperation. In turn, cooperation nurtures the development of stability within the group. As you reflect on these connections, consider how these early practices shape our understanding of community and cooperation. Would you like to explore this topic further, or take a moment to let these ideas settle? When individuals depend on one another for survival, they start to synchronize their actions. This coordination may begin informally, but over time it can transform into tradition. As these traditions solidify, they form a structure. Imagine early humans organizing themselves in such ways hundreds of thousands of years ago. It becomes easier to envision how this order could expand into something greater. A society doesn't necessarily need written laws to establish structure. It simply requires shared rules that people agree to follow. Over generations, these rules evolve. Some become more effective, while others fade away. Certain rules become so fundamental that they shape the behavior of the entire community. When unwritten rules gain enough strength to influence daily life, this marks the dawn of social order. In contemplating the emergence of early civilizations, it's crucial to recognize that the initial signs of order don't stem from sudden leaps in complexity. They arise from time, consistency, and the gradual accumulation of small advancements. If groups remain stable, communicate openly, and consistently refine their methods, the path to a more organized society can develop organically. The transition from an organized group to a civilization is not a singular event. It unfolds over time. It unfolds gradually, shaped by countless generations of trial and error. One fascinating aspect of early societies is the development of tools and the knowledge behind their creation. When someone learns to craft a specific type of tool, they often share that knowledge with others. Teaching requires intention, along with a means to communicate effectively. If the knowledge of tool making spreads among different groups, it hints at the existence of a communication network. These networks might not be formal alliances, yet they forge connections that can profoundly influence cultural development. Over time, such interactions can lead to the sharing of techniques across vast regions. If one group invents a particularly effective tool design, others may adopt it, reflecting the early stages of cultural exchange. Cultural exchange serves as a fundamental building block of civilization, enabling knowledge to reach beyond the confines of any single group. Even if the materials used in tool making are simple, the act of sharing and adapting knowledge signifies a structured system. Additionally, environmental pressures, such as droughts or cold spells, compel groups to collaborate in ways they might not consider when resources are abundant. Take a moment to reflect on these connections and the impact they have on our shared history. Would you like to explore this topic further, or perhaps take a moment to rest? When groups learn to store food, anticipate seasonal changes, or navigate their surroundings based on environmental cues, they begin to develop early forms of planning. This ability to plan is what sets organized societies apart from those that are loosely coordinated. Even a simple, reliable plan can become woven into the fabric of a community. Early humans also found ways to express complex ideas. While spoken language didn't appear overnight, gradual enhancements in verbal communication enabled groups to work together more effectively. Improved communication leads to clearer instructions and more precise shared goals. Conflicts can be resolved through conversation rather than confrontation. With each advancement in how we communicate, the potential for organized behavior expands. Another vital aspect of early social order is the management of space. When groups return to the same location repeatedly, they often start to arrange their shelters in predictable patterns. They might designate specific areas for fire, gathering, or tools. These layouts are not accidental. They arise from generations of shared experiences. Over time, the configuration of a site reflects the group's understanding of efficiency and safety. As you reflect on these developments, consider how they laid the foundation for complex societies. Each step forward in communication and planning not only enhanced daily life, but also shaped the very structures of community. Would you like to explore this idea further, or perhaps take a moment to rest? Even in the absence of walls or permanent structures, the way spaces are arranged reveals thoughtfulness and planning. In certain areas, there is evidence that early humans came together in larger groups than we once believed. Such gatherings necessitate coordination. To manage groups of this size, individuals must adhere to shared expectations. These meetings may have been intended for seasonal hunts, resource gathering, or rituals connected to the natural world. Regardless of their purpose, the existence of these large coordinated groups supports the notion that early forms of order could emerge long before we officially recognize civilization. Imagine this process unfolding over extended periods. It becomes clear that order can develop without anyone explicitly declaring the emergence of civilization. A society does not begin simply when someone proclaims it. It takes shape when enough individuals engage in a lifestyle that relies on structured cooperation. This structure evolves gradually, layer by layer, shaped by collective experiences, environmental needs, and the transmission of knowledge. As the initial sparks of order continue to grow, patterns begin to form that influence everyday actions. Consider where people gather, how they prepare food, how they educate their children, how they resolve conflicts, how they react to threats, and how they adapt to changes in their surroundings. Each of these elements contributes to the rich tapestry of early human society. Imagine the patterns that shape daily life. Over generations, these patterns become so ingrained that they feel like the very foundation of existence. This evolution paints a vibrant picture of early human organization, one that is far more dynamic than the simplistic images often portrayed. People were not merely surviving, they were learning, adapting, teaching, and creating systems that nurtured their communities. Have you ever wondered how these systems might have evolved into something larger? It's intriguing to think about how order can spread across distances and develop into more complex structures. When we envision the distant past, we often see landscapes dotted with simple shelters, scattered groups of hunters, and vast stretches of wilderness where human impact seems minimal. This image is comforting because it aligns with what we've been taught. Yet, when you take a step back, the scale of time reveals that this familiar view is just one of countless possibilities. Over hundreds of thousands of years before the advent of written history, the Earth experienced countless cycles of climate change, migration, and adaptation. In this immense span of time, it's possible that far more complex societies existed than the isolated groups we commonly imagine. As you reflect on this, consider how much more there is to discover about our past and the intricate web of connections that shaped humanity. Wouldn't you like to delve deeper into this exploration? To truly embrace this concept, it's valuable to reflect on what the world was like before recognized civilizations emerged. Imagine a time before cities were built, before agriculture took root, and before people established permanent homes. There were eras when the climate was stable, resources plentiful, and landscapes diverse, allowing larger groups to potentially form. Even in the absence of modern tools, these favorable conditions could give rise to societies that were more organized than we often attribute to early humans. Consider a region where resources are consistently available. Picture a valley with a dependable water source, rich soil, and an abundance of flora and fauna. Envision a place where severe winters are uncommon and seasonal changes are predictable. Over time, such an area could sustain growing populations. If groups started returning to the same location year after year, their understanding of the land would deepen. They would discover which plants thrived in certain spots, which animals migrated through their territory, and which materials were ideal for crafting tools. This shared knowledge, passed down through generations, lays the foundation for lasting organization. As you ponder this, what thoughts arise about the connections between environment and community? Perhaps you feel a sense of curiosity about the roots of human collaboration. If you wish to explore further, you are welcome to linger a bit longer. Imagine a region where the population grows gradually. With more people, new social dynamics start to unfold. The tasks of daily life, gathering food, crafting tools, building shelters, and coordinating within the group become increasingly complex. As this complexity arises, so does the need for defined roles. These roles bring about expectations, leading to systems that, while often unwritten, feel familiar. These elements are the foundational ingredients of a society. They don't necessitate written language, advanced technologies, or grand architectural feats. Instead, they require stability, effective communication, and the passage of time. Over thousands of years, these dynamics can foster a network of settlements throughout a region. People may migrate between locations based on the seasons or availability of resources, yet they will share common tools, traditions, and methods. If these groups interact regularly, their cultural practices can spread across vast areas. Over generations, as these practices evolve, they can become surprisingly intricate, even in the absence of substantial archaeological evidence. Much of early human innovation relied on materials that don't withstand the test of time. Fibers, wood, hides, and simple adhesives, for instance. While these materials may not survive for thousands of years, they supported the creation of remarkably effective tools and structures. Take a moment to reflect on this fascinating journey of human development. It invites us to appreciate the subtle complexities that shape our shared history. Imagine shelters crafted from wood and woven materials, enduring for years, yet leaving little trace after millennia. Picture storage pits lined with leaves or bark. Visualize fishing nets, baskets, and snares made from plant fibers. Consider cooking pits, gathering areas, and simple paths worn into the earth over generations, now hidden beneath shifting sediment. None of these remnants are visible today, yet they hint at communities far more organized than the simplistic views often associated with our early history. In a world preceding our own, order might have emerged gradually, becoming woven into daily life. People could have established routines around planting and harvesting wild crops long before formal agriculture took root. Evidence suggests that early humans encouraged the growth of specific plants even before they began to farm intentionally. If this practice persisted over generations, it could resemble primitive cultivation. Such activities might have supported larger populations, reducing the need for constant movement. As routines settled, knowledge would evolve further. Groups would begin to develop more predictable cycles. This predictability fosters planning, and with planning comes sustained growth. As you reflect on this, consider the implications of these early practices. What might they reveal about our connection to the past? Imagine a world where the traces of early human life are nearly invisible. Many of the advancements made in those times left behind little evidence for us to uncover. The first farming experiments often involved plants that didn't preserve well. Attempts at irrigation might have been washed away by floods. Wooden tools would have simply rotted away, while paths faded into the landscape. Over tens of thousands of years, the earth reshapes itself so completely that even the deepest traces can vanish. If these early people constructed anything more lasting, it was likely quite modest. Think of stone foundations, fire pits, or simple walls made from stacked rocks, all serving practical purposes without the grandeur of monuments. If these structures faced erosion, plant growth, or tectonic shifts, they would blend seamlessly into their surroundings. Without a clear context, even the most experienced archaeologists might mistake them for natural formations. Once ancient evidence endures a certain level of weathering, it loses any resemblance to something crafted by human hands. In this early world, cooperation may have reached beyond individual groups. Nearby settlements might have exchanged knowledge about resources, migrations, or changes in seasons. If these interactions occurred repeatedly over centuries, they could form intricate regional networks. How fascinating it is to consider the connections that might have existed in that time. Wouldn't you agree that the story of humanity is woven through these subtle threads of collaboration? As you reflect on this, take a moment to appreciate the depth of our shared past. Imagine a world where networks serve as the backbone of civilization, allowing knowledge to travel far beyond what any one group could achieve alone. These connections foster cultural exchanges, create shared practices, and enable the spread of innovations across different regions. Consider the possibility that such networks existed long before we began recording history. Their influence may remain hidden from us today. Knowledge, after all, can move without leaving behind tangible objects. Think about the ways we prepare food, store resources, or manage community activities. These methods can endure even when no clear archaeological evidence remains. Even the most intricate practices can rely on materials that degrade quickly. A society might have had complex social roles, rich traditions, or specialized skills without leaving behind artifacts that last through the ages. As you reflect on this early world, consider the significance of population size. If environmental conditions supported larger groups, the potential for sustained organization increases dramatically. While a few dozen individuals can cooperate effectively, their impact is limited. In contrast, several hundred people living in interconnected sites can cultivate more stable and enduring structures. Take a moment to ponder these ideas. What might they reveal about the past? Imagine a time when groups of people learned to gather food more effectively, preparing for lean seasons and managing conflicts among themselves. As their stability increased, they found more energy to invest in enhancing their knowledge and skills. Climate played a crucial role in this early world, influencing where people could thrive and how they survived. There were times when the climate was favorable for long-term settlement. Warm and stable conditions nurtured abundant plant and animal life, allowing early humans to explore new ways of living. Staying in one place for extended periods fostered deeper connections with the land, laying the groundwork for structured societies. In these stable times, groups may have constructed larger gathering spaces, creating rituals and traditions tied to seasonal changes. These practices helped unite generations, strengthening a shared identity. Even in simple societies, this sense of belonging can lead to lasting cohesion, which is vital for maintaining order and fostering growth over time. Additionally, these early communities might have begun to engage in simple trade, opening new avenues for interaction and resource sharing. Imagine a time when groups specialized in gathering resources or crafting tools. They might have engaged in exchanging goods, creating trade networks that don't necessarily require roads, carts, or markets. Instead, these networks could emerge through repeated interactions during seasonal gatherings. Over generations, such exchanges could spread materials and ideas across vast regions. As trade became a stable aspect of life, societies would become less isolated. This reduction in isolation opens up new opportunities for innovation and the sharing of knowledge. Picture generations thriving within these networks, refining tools, practicing early forms of cultivation, organizing communal activities, and passing down wisdom. The concept of a society emerging long before our known civilizations shifts from mere speculation to a natural outcome of human behavior when provided with enough time and stability. A world preceding ours wouldn't need to mirror modernity. Its structures might be small, its traditions simple, and its tools modest. Yet the organization could be far more sophisticated than the scant evidence we have suggests. In this early world, people might have developed social practices that feel familiar to us today. They could have gathered in large groups during specific seasons, fostering a sense of community and shared purpose. As you reflect on this, consider the richness of connections that might have existed in these early societies. Wouldn't it be intriguing to explore how these foundations shaped the world we know now? Imagine a time when people gathered for shared meals, celebrating significant moments together. They might have created ways to recognize leaders and resolve disputes, establishing patterns for distributing responsibilities within their communities. These practices form the bedrock of how societies operate. As these patterns endure across generations, they transform into the subtle framework of a civilization in its infancy. This framework doesn't rely on modern technology. Rather, it thrives on patience, cooperation, and repetition. Over time, repetition evolves into tradition, which in turn shapes expectations. These expectations solidify into structure. Even the simplest structures can support societies that exceed our typical understanding of early human life. What if this world existed much earlier than we realize? Its eventual decline could be attributed solely to natural forces. A shift in climate might render the region uninhabitable. A drought could diminish food supplies. An epidemic might weaken the populace, while a volcanic eruption could displace communities across vast territories. When a society disperses, the knowledge it holds becomes fragile. Without consistent teaching, specialized skills can easily fade away. Imagine a world where shared customs bind a community together. Without these connections, unity begins to erode. As time passes, the once solid framework that supports society weakens. Generations later, the essence of that structure might fade entirely. Future inhabitants could find themselves on land rich with history, yet unaware of the lives that once thrived there. Perhaps they stumble upon scattered stones or unusual patterns in the earth, interpreting them merely as natural occurrences. In the absence of written records, the narrative of those early communities could vanish, leaving only faint remnants buried beneath layers of sediment and the passage of time. This contemplation invites a deeper reflection. How many societies may have emerged and dissolved before the ones we study today? Human evolution stretches across a timeline far exceeding recorded history. It's conceivable that groups formed intricate communities only to lose their cohesion and fragment, leaving little evidence behind. These cycles might have repeated across various regions, with each new wave of survivors carrying forward essential skills, but losing sight of the grander structure that once existed. Over thousands of years, memories fade, landscapes transform, and the early societies we seek to understand become nearly unrecognizable within the archaeological record. As you ponder this, consider the stories that remain untold, hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. Would you like to continue exploring these mysteries, or perhaps take a moment to reflect? Imagine a world that existed long before our own. This exploration isn't about rewriting history. Rather, it invites you to acknowledge the vastness of time and the limited evidence we possess. The visible layers of human civilization represent only a small glimpse of what may have transpired on this planet. As you delve deeper, you begin to understand that much of human experience remains hidden, not because it never existed, but due to the relentless passage of time that erases so much. As you contemplate a world that might have thrived long before our recorded history, you face the challenge of missing evidence. This absence isn't a result of anything being deliberately concealed. It's simply the nature of our ever-changing Earth. Everything on the surface is fleeting when viewed through the lens of geological time. Cultures rise and fade, landscapes shift, and materials that seem enduring eventually transform into something unrecognizable. When you examine human history over hundreds of thousands of years, the question shifts from whether something existed to whether anything from that time could possibly endure long enough for us to discover today. Scientists often describe this challenge in various ways, but at its heart lies the concept of ancient echoes. Consider this idea as you reflect on the mysteries of our past. What might those echoes reveal about the world that came before us? When something occurs long ago, its echoes may reach us only faintly, if at all. These echoes can be distorted, partial, or so quiet that they blend seamlessly into the sounds of nature. Even if they do reach us, understanding their significance can be a challenge. This dilemma lies at the heart of exploring the possibility of early civilizations. It's not just about whether they existed, but whether their remnants could endure long enough for us to recognize them today. To grasp why this is so difficult, consider how swiftly human structures begin to vanish when left unattended. Modern buildings may appear robust, yet even reinforced concrete succumbs to the relentless forces of nature over time. Steel succumbs to rust, wood decays, glass shatters, and plastic loses its integrity. If a city is abandoned for a few centuries, nature starts to reclaim it. Plants sprout through cracks, water seeps into foundations, and animals make their homes in deserted spaces. After a millennium, Many structures would have crumbled into heaps of debris. After tens of thousands of years, that debris would be hidden beneath layers of soil or reduced to mere fragments. And after hundreds of thousands of years, any remaining signs of human creation would be buried deep beneath the earth, transformed into something that no longer resembles its original form. Isn't it fascinating to ponder what stories these remnants might hold? As we reflect on this, consider the mysteries of the past and what they might still reveal to us. As you consider the fate of modern materials, the challenge becomes even more pronounced when you think about societies that relied on simpler tools. Groups that built with wood, fiber, bone, or mud would leave behind traces that vanish much more quickly. Even stone, which endures longer than organic materials, can wear down until it merges seamlessly with the natural landscape. Picture a simple rock wall eroding over time. A once carefully shaped stone gradually becomes smooth, and a large structure may collapse, break apart, and ultimately fade into the surroundings. With the passage of time, almost everything loses its original form. Erosion is a significant factor in this gradual disappearance. Rain, wind, rivers, and frost all work against human-made structures. Rain washes away soil, destabilizing foundations. Wind carries sand and dust, gradually sandblasting surfaces. Rivers may change course, cutting into old deposits and removing whatever lies in their way. The expansion of frozen water within cracks can even break apart the hardest rock. Over millennia, these natural processes can erase entire building sites. Imagine a once thriving settlement, abandoned early enough, reduced to nothing. The movement of sediment adds yet another layer of complexity to this story. As you reflect on these transformations, consider the interplay between time and nature. What remnants might still hold stories of those who came before? Across many regions of our world, layers of soil build up gradually, yet consistently. Dust from faraway places settles onto the land, while floods bring fresh layers of silt. Volcanic ash blankets vast areas. Over thousands of years, these layers thicken, and anything left on the surface or buried just beneath can be lost beneath them. Future generations may remain unaware of what lies below until they dig in just the right spot. Even then, geological processes can distort these layers, making any evidence difficult to decipher. The Earth's crust is also molded by tectonic activity. Continents drift over extensive periods, transforming once flat plains into towering mountain ranges. Regions that were once coastal may now sit deep inland. Earthquakes reshape the landscape, while volcanoes create new layers even as they obliterate older surfaces. When land is pushed down into the Earth's interior, it is heated and transformed, erasing nearly all traces of what was once there. Consider a civilization that existed before these shifts occurred. Its remnants might be scattered or entirely lost. Water plays a particularly significant role in what survives, as coastlines change dramatically over time. Have you ever thought about what stories the Earth holds beneath its surface? Imagine a time when ice ages reshaped the world. During these periods, sea levels dropped dramatically, revealing land that once thrived with human life, only to be submerged later beneath hundreds of meters of water. In these underwater realms, decay accelerates. Wood disintegrates, plant fibers vanish, and stone becomes encrusted with marine life or dissolves under specific chemical conditions. Unless an object is quickly buried in sediment, it risks disappearing over time. Even under the most favorable conditions, the opportunity to preserve evidence is fleeting. Archaeological finds often emerge from environments that fortuitously protect materials, such as frozen caves, layers of volcanic ash, or anaerobic conditions that significantly slow decay. Yet, these ideal settings are rare. Most human activities occurred in areas where preservation is less likely. When we think about the earliest societies, the chances of their remnants finding refuge in these protective environments are slim. And if something does manage to survive, identifying it presents another challenge. Without clear context, a crafted object could easily be mistaken for a natural formation. A shaped stone might be confused with a rock that fractured naturally. As you reflect on this, consider the delicate balance between time and preservation. What stories might remain hidden beneath the waves, waiting to be discovered? Imagine a hidden structure lying beneath layers of earth, much like geological formations. As time passes, fragments of material may lose their distinct features, making it increasingly difficult to tell them apart from natural elements. Archaeologists seek out patterns, clusters of artifacts, and specific shapes that hint at human intention. They look for layers that reveal repeated activities. However, if the remnants are too scattered, weathered, or incomplete, those patterns can vanish altogether. Another challenge arises with scale. If an early society never expanded significantly, the remnants it left behind would be minimal. A few settlements, relying on fragile materials, would not create the same archaeological footprint as bustling, densely populated cities. Many cultures that thrived during recognized historical periods left little behind, primarily due to their simple structures. Over time, these subtle signals become even harder to identify. Cultural practices also play a vital role in preservation. If early groups maintained a clean environment, frequently reused materials, or constructed their dwellings in ways that minimized waste, their archaeological signal would weaken even further. As you reflect on these complexities, consider how much remains hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. Some societies today produce significant amounts of waste, while others generate very little. If an ancient society falls into the latter category, its remnants may disappear swiftly. Without piles of refuse, crumbling structures, or discarded items, the evidence of its existence remains sparse. Climate cycles add another layer of complexity to this issue. Extreme cold or heat alters the landscape in unique ways. During colder periods, glaciers can scrape away layers of the earth, revealing some areas while burying others. In warmer times, accelerated plant growth can hasten decay, concealing remnants beneath the soil. Flood cycles reshape valleys, while droughts may expose land only to be covered again by subsequent rains. These cycles repeat over tens of thousands of years, each time erasing parts of our history. When you take a step back, the cumulative impact of these forces becomes staggering. A settlement that existed 50,000 years ago may still leave behind a few recognizable traces under optimal conditions. However, a settlement from 200,000 years ago stands a far lower chance of being detected, and a settlement from 1,000,000 years ago would almost certainly be lost to time. These timelines are crucial when considering the existence of civilizations that might predate those we currently recognize. The deeper you delve into history, the more pronounced the erasure becomes. Isn't it fascinating to ponder what stories might be hidden beneath the surface? Human ancestors present a fascinating challenge when we consider their diversity across different eras. Not all early humans acted in the same way. Various species coexisted, each with unique abilities, habits, and tools. Some groups might have developed advanced techniques, while others remained more primitive. Imagine a scenario where one group established a structured society, living alongside others with different practices. The archaeological record would then reflect a complex blend of signals, without clear indicators of advanced materials. Distinguishing which traces belong to which group becomes quite challenging. Over time, as nature erodes these remnants, those distinctions can fade away entirely. Another aspect to consider is the focus of most archaeological exploration. Researchers typically investigate specific time periods, examining layers known to contain certain artifacts. They often interpret other layers based on their expectations. If they encounter evidence in an unexpected layer that doesn't align with known patterns, it might be dismissed as irrelevant or simply a natural occurrence. This isn't a flaw in the research process. Rather, it highlights the inherent limitations of studying deep time. Without clear signals, it's all too easy to overlook subtle clues. This challenge becomes even more pronounced with large-scale patterns. If a society left behind unique rock formations or altered landscapes, erosion could gradually soften those features, rendering them indistinguishable from the natural environment. As you reflect on this, consider how these complexities shape our understanding of human history. Would you like to delve deeper into this topic, or take a moment to pause and absorb these thoughts? Over time, hills, mounds, and terraces can gradually lose their original forms. Today, many landscapes that appear untouched may have been shaped by ancient activities. Without precise measurements and clear distinctions, recognizing these influences becomes a daunting task. Even the traces left by chemicals can be elusive. For instance, fires leave behind charred remnants, but charcoal can only endure under specific conditions. Buried charcoal is often disturbed by animals, plant roots, or various soil processes, and in some environments it can completely dissolve. Similarly, traces of food preparation, pigments, or adhesives degrade chemically over time. In the absence of these signals, the material record grows quieter. While stone tools can last much longer, they are not immune to change. Their edges can wear down, and surfaces might become polished by wind or water. Breaks caused by natural processes can easily mimic the shapes crafted by human hands. Without clear, repeated patterns, isolated artifacts can be challenging to interpret with confidence. Many shaped stones discovered today could either be tools or simply natural fractures. Without context, certainty is rare. As you delve deeper into this echo of the past, you begin to understand just how much remains unknown about our early history. Consider the idea that much of our history has been obscured. Evidence exists, yet it often remains hidden, altered, or scattered. This uncertainty doesn't confirm or deny the existence of early civilizations. Rather, it highlights that the absence of evidence doesn't provide a complete answer. If traces of the past can disappear so easily, then the silence we encounter today may not accurately represent what once thrived. This perspective encourages you to look deeper, instead of assuming that significant moments leave behind clear signs. It might be more reasonable to think that the earliest chapters of human history are far more intricate than the fragments we've uncovered. The Earth is not a mere archive. It is a dynamic system where only the most resilient traces endure. When you envision technology from the distant past, you might picture simple stone tools or basic wooden structures. It's natural to think of early humans crafting their surroundings with straightforward materials, leaving behind obvious remnants. However, when considering the possibility of a society that existed long before recorded history, it's essential to rethink what technology truly means in that context. What if technology back then was something entirely different? This invites you to explore the complexities of human innovation and adaptation throughout time. Technology isn't limited to metal or machinery. It encompasses any method, system, or object that enhances our survival, efficiency, or comfort. When viewed through this broader lens, the early capabilities of humans come into clearer focus. Humans have always been adept problem solvers. Long before the advent of cities or the practice of agriculture, early people found ways to interact with their environment that transcended mere instinct. They learned to control fire, crafted specialized tools, and created clothing suited to their surroundings. They shaped materials based on their needs. These foundational skills represent significant technological progress, even if they may seem minor compared to later advancements. As these basic abilities evolved over thousands of years, they had the potential to lead to remarkably complex outcomes. However, one challenge in understanding early technology lies in the materials used, which were often perishable. Plant fibers, leather, wood, and simple adhesives degrade quickly. If an early society constructed structures primarily from organic materials, those buildings would vanish shortly after being abandoned. Reflect on how these early innovations laid the groundwork for the complex societies that followed. Isn't it fascinating to consider how such humble beginnings could shape the future? Imagine a world where wooden frameworks and woven walls stand tall, their roofs crafted from leaves. These structures might endure for years, yet inevitably they succumb to time, rotting away and merging back into the earth. Even tools made from bone or antler face a similar fate, decaying or breaking under the wrong conditions. If these were the primary materials of an ancient technological system, the remnants left behind would be nearly impossible to trace after tens of thousands of years. This perspective shifts our understanding of what might have existed long before the technologies we typically associate with archaeology. Early communities could have devised innovative methods for constructing shelters, far ahead of their time, yet without leaving behind the stone foundations we often expect from later civilizations. They might have built substantial communal structures using wooden beams, reinforced with plant fibers or earth, creating a sense of togetherness. Consider their ingenuity in crafting storage containers from woven materials or developing efficient cooking setups. They may have mastered construction techniques that were stable and functional, even if they were fragile in the long run. All these innovations fit neatly within the definition of technology. If these early societies engaged in specialized crafts, those skills would have relied heavily on natural materials that have since vanished. Imagine skilled artisans who knew how to carve wood with incredible precision, create strong fibers for nets, or bind materials together in intricate ways, allowing for complex weaving and construction. As you reflect on this, what might it reveal about our own understanding of progress and innovation? Imagine a time when early humans crafted tools with sharp edges and distinctive shapes. These tools were essential for hunting, preparing food, and constructing shelters. Over generations, families passed down these tools, each refinement enhancing their effectiveness. However, if these tools were made from materials like wood or plant fibers, they would leave behind little trace in the archaeological record. Think about modern objects. How many would simply disappear if left exposed to the elements for centuries? Baskets would break down, fabrics would fade, wooden implements would rot, ropes would fray, and even books would disintegrate into dust. When you consider a time span of tens or hundreds of thousands of years, the complete loss of these items becomes inevitable. The earth has a way of reclaiming all things organic. Soil microbes decompose them, plants grow through them, animals scatter or consume them, and water washes them away. In the grand scheme of time, nothing endures. Another aspect of early technology revolves around food management. Groups that discovered effective ways to store food gained a significant survival advantage. Techniques such as drying, smoking, fermenting, or burying food in cool pits were innovative solutions. A community that mastered these methods could endure harsh winters or seasonal shortages. Even the most basic cultivation of certain plants could mean the difference between survival and scarcity. As you reflect on these early innovations, consider how they shaped the lives of those who came before us. Would you like to delve deeper into this fascinating journey of human ingenuity? Imagine a world where larger, more stable populations thrive. Over countless generations, practices begin to evolve, inching closer to what we might recognize as early agriculture. However, the initial experiments with cultivation often leave behind scant evidence. Without the widespread use of durable tools or permanent fields, the signs of these early endeavors fade into obscurity. Fire emerges as a pivotal force in technological advancement. It offers warmth, cooking, protection, and even the ability to shape tools. Early humans discovered the art of heat treatment, making materials easier to manipulate. They established designated fire areas that fostered communal gatherings, experimenting with fire to sculpt landscapes, promote plant growth, or drive animals during hunts. These actions represent a form of environmental management, and if practiced consistently, they can significantly influence societal structure. Yet, the remnants of ancient fires can be elusive, often disappearing over time due to erosion or groundwater. As societies evolve, so too does the division of labor. People begin to specialize. Some become adept tool makers, while others take on roles as hunters, gatherers, planners, or caretakers. This division is a hallmark of a society in motion, reflecting the intricate tapestry of human development. So, as you reflect on these early practices, consider how they might resonate with the world around you today. Would you like to explore this journey further, or perhaps take a moment to rest and absorb these ideas? Imagine a world where specialization and knowledge flourish. In this early society, the technological advancements may surprise you. Instead of the rudimentary tools we often assume, generations refine their techniques and methods, leading to a deeper understanding of their environment. However, it's essential to recognize that mastery doesn't always mean permanence. A skilled artisan, despite their expertise, may leave behind no trace of their work if it involves materials that decay over time. In the end, time blurs the lines between the novice and the master. Now consider the fascinating realm of simple engineering. This doesn't hinge on metal structures or grand edifices. It begins with fundamental concepts like how to lift heavy objects, create stable surfaces, or channel water through dugout pathways. Even straightforward engineering efforts can greatly enhance everyday life. Picture early humans constructing elevated walkways to navigate wet terrain, or digging storage pits lined with moisture-resistant materials. They might shape earthen walls to manage the wind, showcasing an impressive grasp of their surroundings. If these techniques spread across a region, they could hint at a society that is relatively advanced. Yet without the right geological conditions, such remarkable structures might quickly fade away, leaving little evidence of their existence. As you reflect on this, you might wonder about the stories that have been lost to time. As early engineering practices evolve, they may lead to systems that foster cooperation among different groups. Imagine communities coming together to create shared meeting spaces, collective storage areas, or simple pathways connecting one settlement to another. These pathways, formed from compacted earth, can endure long after their creators have vanished, yet they will eventually disappear, blending back into the landscape over time. In fact, even today, hunter-gatherer trails can fade within a single generation if they go unused. Another area ripe for exploration is early tool making, particularly with composite materials. These composite tools, crafted from various parts, such as wooden handles, stone blades, and binding materials like sinew or plant fibers, signify a leap towards advanced thinking. If early humans had developed these techniques earlier than we currently believe, they might have created a vast array of tools that simply did not survive long enough for us to discover. The organic components tend to decay first, leaving behind only the stone remnants, which can appear incomplete. Without the full context of the tool, it's easy to underestimate the technological sophistication of those who created it. How much more might we uncover about our past if we could see the full picture? Adhesives are essential in understanding early human innovation. Imagine early humans crafting natural glues from resin, pitch, or boiled plant materials. The process of creating these adhesives demanded precise temperatures and careful preparation. When a society mastered the use of adhesives, they could construct sturdy and flexible tools and structures. Interestingly, these adhesives eventually degrade, leaving no chemical trace over time. This means that an entire technological system built on such materials could disappear without a trace, almost as if it never existed. Consider the evolution of hunting techniques as another reflection of early technological thought. Coordinated hunting strategies, the use of traps, and tracking methods all required careful planning. If groups developed these complex strategies, they could support larger populations. They might have built efficient shelters close to hunting grounds or created temporary structures to process food in large quantities. These structures could have been seasonal, leaving behind minimal remains. The absence of physical evidence does not indicate a lack of sophistication. Rather, it highlights the fragility of the materials they used. Another intriguing possibility is the early use of heat for purposes beyond cooking. When applied under controlled conditions, heat can harden wood, strengthen stone, or alter the properties of other natural materials. Such innovations reveal the depth of early human ingenuity and adaptability. Imagine a time when early humans discovered the transformative power of heat. This breakthrough could have significantly influenced their ability to create tools and construct shelters. However, the evidence of such practices is often elusive. Heat-altered stone can easily be mistaken for naturally occurring materials, and modified wood tends to decay over time. Without a clear context, distinguishing these human-made changes from natural processes becomes quite challenging. Consider another possible advancement: water management. Even basic techniques like digging channels to improve access to springs or shaping the landscape to manage runoff represent early forms of engineering. Groups that mastered these methods could settle in one place for longer periods, allowing for larger gatherings. Unfortunately, if these practices existed long ago, they may have been erased by natural erosion or sedimentation. A ditch, no matter how well used, can vanish beneath floodwaters or be overtaken by vegetation. Behavioral technology also plays a crucial role in the development of early societies. This term refers to the strategies that help organize life within a group. Activities like rotating tasks, planning hunts, training the young, managing resources, and establishing shared rules are all part of this framework. While these strategies leave no physical trace, they profoundly impact the stability and growth of a community. As you reflect on these innovations, consider how they might have shaped the lives of those early humans. Each advancement, no matter how subtle, contributed to the foundation of society as we know it today. If you wish to explore further or take a moment to pause, the choice is yours. Imagine a time long before farming or writing when early humans might have developed complex behavioral systems. The impact of such advancements on their society could have been profound. Yet, without tangible artifacts, these developments remain hidden within the archaeological record, creating a fascinating illusion, a technological mirage. This mirage does not deceive. It simply reflects how time alters the remnants of the past. A society may have achieved remarkable complexity, appearing advanced compared to our expectations of early humans. Yet when we examine the scant evidence left behind, it can seem primitive. The sophisticated ideas and methods they possessed may well have existed, but the visible signs have faded, leaving only faint traces. Some researchers have pointed out intriguing archaeological findings that suggest earlier technological experimentation than we previously thought. For example, lightly modified stones discovered deep within older layers, peculiar patterns in sediment, or charcoal in layers that seem too ancient for known human activity. While many of these discoveries have natural explanations, they sometimes raise more questions than answers. These questions do not serve as proof of a lost civilization. Instead, they remind us of the limitations inherent in the evidence we have. They underscore how easily early innovations can slip from our notice or be misinterpreted when the record is incomplete. As you reflect on this, consider the mysteries that lie within the past, inviting you to explore further. Imagine a time when early humans were constantly experimenting with tools and techniques. In this process, they might have independently created similar technologies in various regions. These innovations could emerge and disappear without ever becoming widely adopted. Factors like climate changes, migrations, or declines in population could disrupt this progress. When new groups arrived later, they often started with simpler methods. Even if a region had once supported more advanced systems, these cycles of development could repeat many times. A place that once showed signs of complex tools could later be inhabited by groups using much simpler techniques. This layering of activity can create a seemingly inconsistent historical record. Without a clear continuity in development, piecing together the full narrative becomes quite challenging. The dynamics of population also play a critical role in technological advancement. Larger populations tend to generate more ideas, leading to greater experimentation and innovation. In regions that supported large numbers of early humans during favorable climatic conditions, technological progress could flourish. However, when environmental changes lead to population declines, much of that accumulated knowledge might be lost. Smaller groups may struggle to retain all the specialized skills that once thrived. Consequently, the technologies that once defined a region can fade, leaving only faint traces behind. As you reflect on this cycle of innovation and loss, consider how these patterns shape our understanding of human history. Would you like to explore this topic further, or perhaps take a moment to rest? Imagine a time when the traces of ancient societies fade away, perhaps completely. The exchange of goods and ideas between communities introduces a fascinating layer to this narrative. If these early groups shared resources or techniques, they could spread innovations far beyond their immediate surroundings. Yet, if the materials they used were delicate, the evidence of their advancements might vanish without a trace. Even today, some indigenous communities rely on intricate tool systems made almost entirely from organic materials. Should these groups suddenly disappear, their technological legacy could become nearly invisible in just a few centuries. Now, envision this scenario playing out hundreds of thousands of years ago, and the erasure becomes absolute. As societies evolve, they often begin to record their knowledge in informal ways. In those early days, this record keeping wouldn't involve writing or stone carvings. Instead, it thrived through memory, storytelling, and teaching. This method remains robust as long as the society stays intact. However, when populations dwindle or disperse, these oral traditions can weaken swiftly. A few generations of upheaval can erase the memory of intricate techniques, leaving only faint traces of what once was. As descendants attempt to rebuild, they may find it challenging to regain the same level of sophistication for many generations. Isn't it intriguing to consider how easily knowledge can slip through the cracks of time? Imagine the early technological systems of ancient societies. They don't have to mirror anything we see today. Picture them crafted entirely from natural materials, shaped through careful planning and gradual improvements. Envision intricate weaving, advanced wooden joints, efficient food preservation techniques, coordinated land use, and sophisticated hunting methods. These innovations could significantly impact daily life, yet they might completely fade away over time. As you ponder this, it becomes easier to see how a complex society could emerge in the early chapters of human history, even if it leaves no clear archaeological traces. This society could be organized, inventive, and stable, yet constructed from materials that simply disappear. Its structures could serve their purpose effectively, but eventually collapse and decay. The tools, while refined, might be made from substances that do not endure. Even the cultural practices that once guided survival could vanish if the community changes or disperses. When a society flourishes over generations, it often reaches a stage where the systems that once nurtured it begin to feel the strain. Take a moment to reflect on this. What does it reveal about the resilience and fragility of human innovation? This strain doesn't emerge all at once. It unfolds gradually, often in ways that those experiencing it might not notice. The challenges manifest through subtle shifts, slight imbalances, or unforeseen conflicts. These slow changes are the early signs of entropy, indicating the gradual weakening of structures that once felt secure. As you think about a society that might have existed long before our known civilizations, it's vital to grasp how the forces of growth can lead to fragility. A society that develops systems for gathering food, constructing shelters, coordinating tasks, and maintaining order eventually finds its survival hinges on the smooth functioning of these systems. As populations grow, the demands on these systems increase. What once relied on a few skilled tool makers may now require a more organized approach to tool production. If food gathering was once straightforward, larger groups may strain available resources. Leadership that thrived on shared understanding might now necessitate more formal roles due to increased complexity. With each adjustment, new dependencies arise, creating a web of expectations. People come to expect certain tasks to be completed, shaping the very fabric of their society. Reflect on this intricate balance and consider how easily it can shift. You may find that societies often rely on the availability of resources and the continuation of traditions. When disruptions occur in this delicate network, the entire system can become unstable. This phenomenon is evident across all societies, regardless of their technological advancements. As systems expand, their stability increasingly hinges on the continuity of their components. The larger a society becomes, the more susceptible it is to even minor disturbances. Picture a region where a stable society has flourished over many generations. The people have an intimate understanding of their land. They know where to find food, how to construct shelter, and how to navigate their environment. Each person has a role, traditions are upheld, and life follows a predictable rhythm. However, as this society grows, its success will increasingly depend on the long-term stability of its environment. Even slight shifts in climate can significantly affect the availability of essential resources. A minor change in temperature might alter plant growth, while a shift in rainfall could limit access to clean water. Although these changes may seem insignificant at first, they can exert pressure on the systems that people rely on. As these pressures accumulate, individuals must either adapt swiftly or risk losing the stability they have worked hard to establish. Adapting to these challenges requires experimentation, collaboration, and sometimes substantial changes to established routines. You might wonder how societies navigate these intricate dynamics, and it is this ongoing journey of adaptation that shapes their resilience. As you reflect on this, consider the importance of understanding and responding to the world around you. As the world around us changes, not every society can adapt at the same pace. Some traditions become so entrenched that altering them feels unsettling. When a community has relied on a specific cycle for generations, shifting that cycle can introduce uncertainty, and uncertainty often breeds tension that can reveal cracks in a once stable organization. Conflict may arise from within as well. As groups expand, disagreements tend to surface more frequently. These disputes can center on how to share resources, assign roles, or make decisions. In earlier societies, informal methods often resolved conflicts. However, as populations grow, these informal systems may falter. More individuals bring diverse perspectives, competing interests, and an increased potential for division. When leaders or respected figures struggle to maintain unity, the internal structure of the community begins to weaken. Another factor contributing to disarray is specialization. As roles become more defined, individuals rely increasingly on others for tasks they no longer perform themselves. If only a handful of people possess the knowledge to create certain tools or gather specific resources, losing those individuals can lead to instability. Reflect on this. How do we navigate the delicate balance between tradition and change in our own lives? Perhaps it's time to consider how we can foster unity amidst the complexities of our evolving world. When knowledge is held by only a few, it becomes fragile. If those individuals leave, fade away, or lose their power, the entire society struggles to maintain its former vitality. This sets off a cycle where the very complexity that once supported the community turns into a burden. The flow of information is crucial to stability. In the early days of growth, information travels quickly because groups are small. Everyone is aware of each other's actions, and contributions are abundant. However, as these groups expand, communication slows down. Misunderstandings become more common, and disagreements about traditions arise. When different communities interpret the same concepts in varying ways, a sense of unity begins to wane. This can lead to factions that operate under slightly different principles. Over time, these differences accumulate, resulting in divisions within the society. Environmental factors also play a critical role. A community that thrived in a stable climate may struggle if conditions change. Colder winters, hotter summers, decreased rainfall, or the movement of animals can all create new challenges for the population. If individuals cannot quickly adapt their food gathering methods, scarcity may loom as a significant threat. Reflect on these dynamics for a moment. How do you think a society can maintain its unity amid such challenges? As you ponder this, consider the importance of adaptability and communication in fostering resilience. Scarcity heightens tension, and tension undermines cooperation. Cooperation is essential for the stability of early civilizations. When it falters, the entire foundation becomes shaky. Territory plays a significant role in this dynamic. As groups expand their territories, they encounter unfamiliar landscapes that demand new strategies. They may also face competition from other groups. While competition doesn't always lead to open conflict, it complicates survival. When resources are contested, the need for cooperation within a society becomes even more critical. However, competition can also drive groups apart, leading them to prioritize their own interests over shared goals. This division can weaken the unity necessary for a well-organized society. Social structures add another layer of complexity. As roles become more specialized, hierarchies often emerge. Certain individuals may gain influence due to their skills, age, or experience. Over time, these individuals may accumulate more authority. While authority can provide stability, it can also create imbalance. If people perceive that authority is distributed unevenly, disputes are likely to arise. When leaders fail to resolve these issues effectively, trust begins to erode. Consider how these dynamics play out in your own experiences. What role does cooperation play in your life? Trust serves as the cornerstone for maintaining unity within a group. When trust diminishes, individuals tend to act on their own rather than working together. This shift towards independent actions disrupts established systems and increases instability. As populations grow, these challenges become even more pronounced. A larger population demands more resources, more food, more shelter, and greater coordination. If growth outpaces the ability of society's systems to adapt, shortages are likely to occur. These shortages force difficult choices. Prioritizing one group over another can foster feelings of resentment. When individuals perceive unfair treatment, they may withdraw their cooperation, leading to a decline in collective effort. As cooperation wanes, inefficiency rises, further straining the already stressed resources of society. Additionally, the spread of disease plays a crucial role in these dynamics. As populations become denser, illnesses can circulate more easily. Even minor ailments can significantly weaken groups that depend on the contributions of every member. If a disease impacts a substantial portion of the population simultaneously, essential tasks may go unfulfilled. Food might not be stored correctly, tools could remain unrepaired, and maintenance of shelters may lapse. These seemingly small failures accumulate, resulting in larger, more complex problems. Take a moment to reflect on the delicate balance of trust and cooperation within your own community. How can you contribute to fostering a stronger sense of unity? As time unfolds, societies may struggle to adapt to environmental shifts or external challenges. Interaction with other groups can play a dual role in shaping early societies. On one hand, trade can bring forth new materials, ideas, and methods that enhance resilience. On the other hand, it can also lead to conflict, the spread of diseases, or cultural tensions. When a society relies too heavily on trade for essential resources, disruptions in that network can lead to instability. If ties with neighboring groups weaken, access to vital materials may be lost. This loss forces individuals to adapt swiftly, often without the necessary knowledge to navigate these changes effectively. As societies grow, cultural variations become more pronounced. Different families, groups, or settlements may develop distinct practices. Over time, these differences weave into the fabric of their identity. However, if communication falters or external pressures mount, what were once minor differences can become points of contention. Even small disputes can escalate into significant divisions under certain circumstances. When